the high tunnel program of NRCS, we pushed to have a higher cost share for farmers who'd been, you know, not treated well in the past. So those seasonal greenhouses, there's now over 11,000 of those. And we get the things in the Farm Bill that make the Farm Bill work for the farmers here. And guess what, we're fine. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if there's any farmers that are having trouble with their lawns, with anything else, the thing we beg you is please tell us immediately so we can be helping to get whatever situation is resolved, because when it's at the end of the time, it's very hard. So we always want to say that, and say that to your friends and colleagues. With JUCO and all of us, we're here to help. And the same thing with workers. You all know if somebody is not treating you the right way, because agriculture in Fresno would not exist, or in the whole Central Valley, without the workers. So those are important. Well, what have we accomplished? You know, the Rural Coalition in 2018, it's our next Farm Bill, we'll celebrate 40 years of work. And we work with all the diverse communities in the United States. So here's something that we did. This is, and I have some copies I'll leave on the back table you can find at lunch. This is talking about agriculture in Fresno County, California, and it was what the National Ag Statistics Service did, and it was like one page. It says, here's the total value, and on the back in little it says the Asian farmers did this much and the Hispanic farmers did this much. We talked to NAS and we said, we know that political importance is based on numbers. So we want you to tell us what's the political importance of each of the ethnic communities. And so now what they did is they did county profiles, and I'll put some of these on the back table. And so basically, out of 8,762 farm operators in 2007, in the 2012 Census of Agriculture, 1,519 were Asian operators in Fresno County, and they produced over $416 million worth of products. So the Asian and Hmong farmers, you are an economic force.
I can interpret that. Đó là cho nên cho nên Asia quốc tế họ Fresno County chứ nhưng mỗi part chỉ bộ tại mà đó là nếu mỗi chẳng đi là lai là thì bây giờ nên Asia所以我到摸包譬如講包bộ個到 million 萬元，所以我只怕對那我呢就 register 呢，但是bây giờ公共俾我到嘅，對差包bộ到個到 million， 所以嗰啲些老嘅。Big fun and whatnot, right?
So your work is very, very important. The black farmers are a smaller amount, only 64 in this county, but there's more, and we need to be working, and Michael, on the other counties, but even so, that's $12 million. You know, so when you're talking... the Hispanic farm operators, there's 1,600, so they're about the same size, a little bit bigger than the Hmong farmers and Asian farmers, and they produce $712 million worth of agricultural products. Now we want to know how much of that also went into wages for the workers, but when we're talking about, you are important, and this is like one of the most important counties in the United States for the diverse producers. So the work you're doing with your colleagues at Department of Agriculture and with all of us are very important. And in the program book, I also put a little small piece on page, I think it's like the page behind the agenda, but between 2007 and 2012, there was a 16% increase in the number of Asian farm operators. So it's also a growing population. And I'll also put out, we did a national study, and finally the Rural Coalition got published in the National Institute of Food and Agriculture Digest, and I'll put this out on the table. But as a result of all our work between 2007 and 2012 Census of Agriculture, we increased all the diverse farmers in the United States by 28,000 operators. So that's our shared work. And it's a growing sector of agriculture, and the workers are a growing sector of the economic development in the community. So just think of how important you are and how important you are in producing the kind of food that's needed by the diverse populations in the state of California, but all over the country. And so when you're learning here about what else you can do, you know, what are the things that can be done together? Can we do cooperatives? What are the things that you as farmers need? What are the things that you as workers need? We take those ideas and we're going to translate them with the next Farm Bill in 2018 and before that. And so it's our work together, and that's why we're here standing beside our brothers and sisters in all the communities that are here. Thanks very much.
Well, Lorette, thank you very much. I do want to say this, and this is something that might feel whatever, but I'm just going to say it. No? Mili Treviño here. I do want to thank the people that are here, which is everybody, but I also want to give a special thanks to the people from USDA, from here from California, that represent the state agencies. And this is because we're seeing a little bit of a difference in some of our communities. We've been doing workshops throughout California, and Carlos and Oscar, we really, really appreciate the kind of work that you're pushing forward to make sure that there's more outreach in our communities. And I'm not saying it to bardearlos, you know what that means, ¿verdad? I'm saying it because I'm very outspoken, and we know what's really going on in our communities, and we know that you're going to be listening. You have been listening to some of the issues that have been happening in some of the local districts or offices. So muchas gracias, because that's very, very helpful. Aplaudan. The other thing is that we have an exhibit here. It's not for you to just say, oh, it looks beautiful, qué bonito. No, we want you to take your time throughout the day and read and look at some of the designs, because they were made by the farmer women and their families and the people that work in the fields. And they're giving messages about their issues. They're giving messages about what they think is happening, or what they know, some of their experiences that have been happening in as they labor the job. So please do take some time to look over some of these exhibits. We were only able to put a certain amount because we didn't want to overwhelm you. We could have covered the whole wall around here. But just come because it's connected to the presentation that's going to be at noon. And so, apláudanme because para terminar. So now we, I like that. I'm going to stand more here. No. Okay. Now we're going to present Mary Jane Galviso. Where's Mary Jane? Come over here, Mary Jane. Apláudanle a Mary Jane. Mary Jane is going to be talking about the Filipino and
I think, right. I'm Mary Jane Galviso, and I'm with the Rural Communities Resource Center. And I just want to just say a little bit from what Millie said. I think it's time. We're in an election year. I think we have to be a little more honest about what agriculture and the agricultural sector represents in this country. And when Donald Trump talks about building a wall on the border with Mexico, who is he really attacking? Is he really just attacking immigrants? No, he's attacking workers. Workers. People who come to this country to work for cheap. That's who he's talking. He's making us the target. And how do I know this? Is because I grew up on the border. I grew up on a little small town in Imperial County. And we were a Filipino, basically Filipino farming community, tomato farmers, and we became very prosperous after World War II. And there was no wall. And we went to Mexicali almost every weekend. As you know, that was where people went to gamble. Filipinos, we flocked over there for the weekend and we gambled and, did our shopping and walked back. And even kids, I mean, myself growing up, walking back and forth, there was not an issue here, okay? So this is an issue that has contrived. And it's going to, and what worsened it, of course, was this so-called free trade. And the U.S. is very much promoting free trade. So now that it's got free trade, the NAFTA agreement in place in Mexico, and then has the free trade in central and northern part of South America, now it's going to the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. What's that going to do to the rural sectors in Asia and the Pacific Islands? It's going to have a huge impact, because one of the major things it does is that it's designed to dump agricultural commodities in this country to those countries, right? And the same time, so the pushback is poor farmers, villagers, leave the rural areas and come to this country desperate for work. And like I said, when I grew up, we never met Mexicans. All the Mexicans that came were north of Mexico City. It's astounding to meet Mexicans coming from the most remote areas in the Yucatan and the Chiapas area. It's telling you what the U.S. is doing in those regions with NAFTA. They are destroying the local economy. So let's look at that, because again, immigration is not a so-called immigration issue. It's really a labor issue in this country. And I just want to remind folks how Filipinos came to this country. And we owe part of it to black farmers. In the 20s and 30s, there was a huge and the largest migration of people in this country, were black people. That was our biggest migration within the boundaries of this country. And it was African Americans leaving the South to go to the industrial North and to the West Coast. And how did the United States fill that void? People who were not going to work in agriculture anymore. Well, immigration. And where did these people come? During the 20s and the 30s, the US government, working with Big Ag, Dole, and the companies, brought hundreds and thousands of Filipinos from the most remote villages in the Philippines, brought them to work in the plantations in Hawaii, the canneries in Alaska, and in the West Coast. That's how Filipinos got here, to work for the cheapest amount. And let me tell you, it extended to my generation. When I first started picking grapes, we were paid 98 cents an hour. We didn't have any minimum wage. We didn't have an 8-hour work day. We had none of benefits. And it wasn't until, of course, Filipinos, we were the ones who initiated the 1965 grape strike under the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. We walked out and we demanded collective bargaining rights. But we know that we couldn't carry on the strike, and that's when we turned to the Mexican community. Well, we know what the history of that is, but it was through the cooperative effort of Filipino and Mexicans that we were able to carry on that strike for the many years. And it always brought back to me, where is the USDA? Where is the USDA? Where are those US departments that are here to protect agricultural workers and small farmers? Where were you when we were being beaten down? Hard times. So here we are again. And I'll pass it out later. This is our urgent appeal from Filipino farmers, and we basically give it to the Filipino communities in the urban areas, trying to, making them aware that they have to do their part in helping us because we grow their food. Farming is a hard way of life, and every year farmers are faced with more and more problems. Now with the drought, we are forced to ask ourselves, can our farms survive? Can we hold on one more year? Can we continue farming with less and less water? We are Filipino farmers, and our situation is very desperate. Our small family farms are located in northern Tulare County in the California Central Valley, where the drought conditions are the worst in California. Every year, more and more of our farmers are giving up. Now we are the last remaining community of traditional Filipino farmers in this country. Actually, on the mainland, Hawaii, as you know, has the largest community of Filipino farmers. How much longer can our tiny community of traditional Filipino farmers survive? We travel hundreds of miles each week to bring fresh Filipino fruits and vegetables to you at farmers market and stores in Southern and Northern California. Yet our vegetables sell for the same price as they did 10 years ago. And yet all our costs are going up. Irrigation, taxes, supplies, fuel. Do you see our situation? We have applied for funding from the USDA, but the government has been slow to respond to our difficult situation. The only way we know to survive is to reach out to those of you who are concerned and care about family farms. So again, like I said, we know the way we're going to survive is not really depending on government. In 1965, we did depend on the U.S. to intervene and help us as agricultural workers. And again, as farmers, I think it really behooves us to think of ways, and that's one of the reasons why we established the Rural Communities Resource Center, was in order to begin rebuilding our farmer cooperatives. After World War II, that's how Filipino farmers were able to become prosperous, is because we cooperated. We formed together as cooperative, as growers associations. We had our own packing sheds, we had our own distributors. That was the only way we could get our share of the market against the big white growers and agribusiness. And again, the time has come. I'm going to tell you, I think that of all the farmers, Filipinos and Mexicans, we're going to continue going. Why? Because NAFTA and TPP forced the conditions force conditions upon us that poor Filipino farmers and poor Mexican villagers and farmers are going to continue to try to make a living in this country. And more than likely, it's going to be in the rural areas that they come. So this is why it's important to not let the demagoguery of Trump and the hate that comes out when the so-called immigration issue is spoken. We're talking about labor in this country. And we're talking about, are we going to treat people with decency and respect them for the work that they do? Because I always remind people, if you don't like Mexicans and you don't like immigrants, well then give up eating. Because the food on your table, we picked it. We planted it, we picked it, we packed it, and we brought it to the cities for you to eat. So give it up if you don't like us. But, so I think that just basically when we meet with government, we need to be clear about what we want. Actually, I mean, we paid for this. This ain't free. This is our taxes. And we want to see our taxes at work, right? So one thing I do want to ask, and I'm going to ask it again, I know I did it last year, is that you can see we're just a few, and why. Friday's the worst day to pick for a farmers conference, okay? This is the day that we're all out, we're picking it, we're packing to go to the market, right? We got to get our trucks loaded by tonight. We're going to be in our markets by Saturday morning, Sunday. Some of us actually leave on Thursday, to get to the earlier markets. So if we can ask again, please, if you can have this conference, if you want Filipino farmers to really be here in numbers, you got to make it on Monday, because Sunday, some of us rest and then we can be here. But Fridays, those who are still on the farm, they're too tired to come to come on Friday. It's just not going to happen. So. Just in closing, I think that the nonprofit that we've established, I hope that it's a beginning for us. like I said, our tiny numbers we know are going to grow as the TPP. It's going to get put. I mean, it's going to pass. Hey, that's the U.S. economy. That's what the U.S. economy is based on these so-called free trade agreements. And the U.S. and its allies are going to lock up the Pacific and the trade and the economy that's there. So we know that there's going to be more Filipino farmers coming. It's just due course. So we want to be able to have that resource, and that resource is our nonprofit. And I encourage all of you, if you're going to be farming, there's no way you're going to compete unless you are in a cooperative, in a cooperative environment. You got to pull your farmers together. You got to start sharing your resources, and all you have. I mean, land is come on. Where can you buy ag land that's not designed for for a subdivision? Many of you know my story, right? For the past 10 years, I've been battling a municipal, not an irrigation district, a municipal district that wants to build 88 houses on my farm. 10 years, they've been keeping me on the edge of bankruptcy. Okay, because every year I have to pay thousands of dollars just to keep my farm and to keep them from building 88 houses on my farm. Okay, where's the USDA? Do I have to go to them? Doesn't the government reach out to its people? Okay, you know the battle, okay? It's there, and I'm in a small, Orosi is dirt. It's a real small town. So why would they want to build a subdivision? Well, of course, because agriculture, today in agriculture, they're producing more with less acreage, right? Isn't that interesting? Because two things are happening. As agribusiness produces less with less acreage, they're doing two things. They're intensifying the exploitation of the land and the natural resources. And how do they do that? Well, they're doing it with a lot of pesticides and a lot of, but that's that type of farming. And then, of course, more imports. We're going to start seeing more and more. If you're not going, well, we all know, come on, you go to any grocery store, any supermarket, and you'll see grapes from Chile, tomatoes from Mexico, and now our berries are coming from Baja. Driscoll, right? I hope none of you are eating Driscoll berries, right? They're on strike. They're on strike, guys. We're not eating that stuff. If the workers are on strike, and in San Quintin, don't. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up.
Mary Jane has a lot to say. Patricia, can you, with NAD, can you stand up? Mary Jane, can you lead up with her?
Oh, I will.
Your situation?
Okay.
Maybe get a little personal there.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up, but that's just basically my message. Wherever you're farming and wherever you are, it's going to be collective action. It's going to be cooperation that's going to be able to